inside, running route to the 40, breaks it to the 50, takes to the 40, takes to the 30, to the 20, to the 10, to the 5, touchdown.
Starting off our second episode of One More Down with Dr. Kevin Harris Sr., former two-time All-City quarterback out of Wilson High School in Youngstown, Ohio, 3-year starter at cornerback for Kent State University, and the CEO of Harris Enterprise International, uh, educational consultant, leader, transformational person, one of my personal idols and people that I look to coming up in Youngstown playing football. Uh, I always read about this guy, knew of him through my sisters going to Wilson and one going to Kent, seeing him play live in college, and am excited to be able to have a conversation and get his perspective of growing up in Youngstown, his experience playing football at Wilson, uh, the things that propelled him to reach the levels and the heights that he has reached, and to get into uh, what he does in his professional life and his current work.
Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor. I'm grateful for this opportunity. Whatever questions you have, I'm open. Everything is on the table.
All right, and then we want to talk about my partner here, Dallas Saunders, the host of Once a Cowboy, Always a Cowboy podcast with Ron Burtis. Dallas is former head football coach at Struthers High School. Was an all SBC defensive tackle out of Ursuline. Uh, Played baseball at YSU and is currently the superintendent of Western Reserve Local School System.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate it. I think Kevin, Dr. Harris, as we were kind of talking about prepping up for this, I think maybe if you could just give us a little bit of background on where you started, how you came to the love of football, and then maybe a little bit of your progression into, playing at Wilson. Maybe that'd just be a good place to kind of start.
Absolutely. I can recall as far as back as 4 years old, having some equipment, helmets and shoulder pads. Knee pads all the way down to machines. My family started the Braves back in the 70s, early 70s. Garcia Lane, who many of the Youngstown, Northeast Ohio, graduated from South High School. He was his dad and a couple of my uncles and cousins that actually put the organization together. And I just remember me and all of my peer cousins at this age just being out there, learning X's and O's, bull in the ring, the whole nine. So my love for the game started, with family. Just being able to be around the older guys, watching, the culture of what football is and what football is not, really gave me a perspective on how I wanted to live my life, what I wanted to be around, what type of camaraderie I wanted to build for myself in terms of moving on to next levels, from elementary school to high school to college, and ultimately having the opportunity to play as a free agent with the Denver Broncos in '93. But it was just, a perfect piece for me, just being around the gridiron, being not just around, but being a major player, understanding all positions, and just that expectation from family in terms of what that culture really meant in terms of, the pigskin. So I just had a love for the game. It still plays a major role in my life today. Growing up in Youngstown, 5 sisters, no brother. My father didn't live with us, but he was around. My father was a street guy. Uh, I would see him. He would come to the games. Then I wouldn't see him. And he never wanted to tell me anything about or critique me about what I was doing. He was just always there watching. So I never knew if I was pleasing in his sight in terms of my production. But, you can always tell from somebody's energy in terms of like, man, you did a good job. But he would never say anything good or bad. But my mother and my sisters, on the other hand, I remember my youngest sister, Claudia, growing up with her, snowstorm outside, we out in the backyard playing rough and tumble. And she was playing with us, and she was hitting hard. So, when she bring the heat, you got to be able to play. And Claudia was a standout in basketball, middle school, high school, but she was tough. And all of my sisters were pretty good athletes. And again, like I said, 5 sisters, I'm the only boy. I wasn't even the best athlete in the family. My sister Michelle probably was the best athlete in the family. What I will say is that I think I outworked them because they expected me, to just work all the time. That was their expectation of me, to be practicing every day, to be working every day, to be working out to get that competitive edge. So I give a lot of credit to my sisters growing up. And to be honest, no one never really knew. And I mentioned this when I was inducted into the Hall of Fame at Wilson. The primary reason why I wore number 6 is because of my 5 sisters and my mother in the household. So that number 6 was the secret behind why I picked number 6 and lettered all 4 years at Wilson, took that number to college and just played it because they was always there. That was my foundation. So that right there, I mean, who Kevin Harris is to this day, that was the core of who I am and what I became and how I was evolving and still evolving to this day. And I'll never forget that.
Well, you originally grew up on the north side of Youngstown, over in the Westlake area. Um,
That is
you
correct.
transitioned over to the south side to Homestead Park, attend Adams Junior High School, and then matriculate over to Wilson. You bring up your cousin Garcia Lane, and I find that interesting. He's another one of those figures around our city that was a tremendous football player, very good person. He was connected through some of the individuals at the church I attended growing up, Bethel Baptist Church over on the south side. And then he's part of that 1979 undefeated South High team that was squeezed out of the playoffs because there just weren't enough slots during that time period. I find it
Absolutely.
interesting that the two of you, uh, now knowing that you are related to each other, that you all have a similar makeup, uh, background, and importance to your programs. He was a guy that was at that quarterback position, led the city league in rushing in 1979. Uh, by all accounts, this is before my time, but he was a player that was a standout and a diamond above the rest. He went on to go to Ohio State, was all Big Ten as a return specialist, played for the New Jersey Generals in the USFL, played with the Kansas City Chiefs. So coming up under that organization initially with the Braves and playing in that Boney Rogers League back during that time, what was football like during that time period for you? Uh, what type of uh, plays were you guys running? Offensive sets were you running? And then how did that experience playing in those organizations with the Braves and the Little Redmen prepare you for those upper levels of high school football and college football?
Yes. I would say, that era of football, first of all, Garcia Lane, aka Bobby, uh, that was my blueprint. I did everything and tried to just duplicate what he did. I remember when he was playing for Ohio State, I never missed a home game. I was always in the locker room. I got a chance to know all the coaches. I was carrying his bag. I was signing autographs, as a little dude. I'm a middle school, junior high kid down at Ohio State, 1980, 81, 82, 83. And I'm in the locker room with him because, I was his guy. I was his guy. And, watching him and going to that next level, meeting Tressel, meeting Nick Saban before they were not who they are, and the reputation that they made. And a lot of those coaches, that I still keep in touch with to this day, it was just, a joy because, timing is everything. And I think growing up in Boney Rogers, this new generation of football, what I always say, a lot of our good athletes right now, just freak athletes, they lack a little bit of fundamentals, just basic blocking and tackling. And I think from the offense that we ran, power offense, it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But as the game evolved, as we evolve in life, our bodies change, our minds change, and those who cannot adapt are the ones that, still talking about things 30 years ago as if it is still going on today. So that gave me a foundation, just knowing, if we run a power, we're going to run it until somebody stop it. And if we run a 50 defense, we're going to play it. And we just know we got to line up and play football. I think watching kids, I'm in Youngstown every week. And, I go to the middle school games, go to the little league games. And I see they trying to mimic what's happening in football today. But a lot of the interior is it goes by the wayside. But I will say when you have programs like our exterior suburban districts have programs where they grooming kids to play in that system. And that's one of the things that I appreciated when I played for the Little Redmen. We ran all the Mooney plays. Coach Wainwright, we ran Mooney's offense when I played for the Redmen. It was power and belly, and we're going to run it until they stop it. And I was the beneficiary of many of those carries. And it was just a good thing because you built relationships with your offensive linemen because they had to make key blocks. And to this day, when you start talking about the Hall of Fame, Professional Football Hall of Fame, always look at what interior linemen, the Bruce Matthews, the Anthony Munoz, the Tony Jones, those kind of offensive linemen, interior linemen, and, that can just make that block. I used to hear, at Combine, it's only one or two players in the NFL that can make that block. And Tony Jones is one of them, and it's like, man, that's important. But it took me back to my childhood because that's what was instilled in us. We was blocking on the sled and just learning how to tackle on the porter pit. And you got to stand there and somebody coming up and keep your head right, get your shoulders down, shift your head to the side and tackle. Now you got guys going in, and it's just amazing that I never knew such a thing of a concussion growing up. You got your bell rung, go sit on the sidelines, and you'll be back a couple plays later. That's just what it was. And so part of that had to do with how we were coached, how to tackle and how to block. So I think that's one of the fundamental differences that I still hold on to, and even in my personal life, X's and O's are very important in teaching and learning, and leadership, and school leadership, and business leadership. You have a good foundation, and people know the core principles of what we're doing. It's a formula to win. It's a formula for success.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. You talk about the evolution of the game, evolution of people, and adaptation, and you being in the educational space. Every day things change. Every year things change. And kind of circling to that, locally, football has kind of changed. And one of the things that I was interested in was, coming in. So you're a 4-year starter at freshman. What was kind of your view of not just the City Series football team, but football in the Mahoning Valley in general, and then maybe even zero in on what the City Series was like at that time, at the beginning of your high school career, and then at the end. And I think you went from having very little success, not you, but the program having very little success at the start of, you going into ninth grade, and then by the end, you guys are really competing and winning games. So what was kind of the view of you coming in and the transition throughout your high school career within the City Series and Mahoning Valley?
Well, I think I got a head start on things. I mean, a lot of people don't know that I was Coach Kopp's manager. Playing for the Little Redmen, I was the ball boy, manager, water boy, and I held the headphones for Uncle Bob Stoops. He was one of the assistant coaches at Wilson at the time. And so I just got a real good understanding of what coaches expected from players. And, just seeing the players had that kind of heart to rise to the occasion. I remember telling Coach Kopp when I was in 8th grade that before it's all over, I will be the best player to ever play for you. And I put some context behind it. I'm like, Coach Kopp, I'm not better than anybody, but I will be the best player that you ever coached. And that's just being accountable, being responsible, being a leader. And we had our lumps. We took our lumps. But I knew that before I even stepped foot in Wilson School, because I was around in 7th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade. I was around. So I knew some of the things that was missing. And so freshman year, I walked into the building and, we started practicing. And I remember I was a backup and one of the guys got hurt in first game of the season. So coach said, hey, you got to go out there and play safety. I got me a pick like the second series I played. And we won that game, the very first game of the season. So I got a taste of that success, just being able to make a key play to just, sudden change, flip the game. And we end up winning the game just on a pick and convert that into points. So it was like, okay, I think I've arrived. In that freshman year, I just balled. I tackled. I caught interceptions. And to be honest with me, Coach Kopp and I, we still joke about this. It's like, I don't know why you didn't make all city your freshman year. But you think about the talent across the city, it was so many good players. I mean, that was the year Rand had that run with the graveyard crew. I mean, everybody in that secondary, Kenny Donaldson, Tony Donaldson, Kevin Madison, they had players. East had players. Cheney had players. We had players. I mean, it was just the city was packed with athletes. And so it was kind of like, okay, get in where you fit in. I wasn't thinking about all city from the standpoint of, man, I got robbed. I was thinking like, man, I got to get better. Yeah. I got to be that much more. I mean, I got to come harder next year. So even within the Steel Valley, we didn't play Mooney. We didn't play Ursuline. We didn't play Fitch. We played Boardman. Boardman beat us pretty bad. But we never got those opportunities to play against those guys because for whatever reason, I don't know. But after I left, it was like, okay, Wilson is competitive. Then Wilson was playing Ursuline and playing them well. Wilson was playing Mooney and playing them well. But I never got that opportunity to play against that kind of talent because I wanted to play against the best. So when you think about your point of what was the city like at that time, it was just rich with talent. And all those guys come from that era of Little League football, knowing X's and O's, knowing how to block, knowing how to tackle. So it just made it that much more competitive in terms of guys wasn't just out there, jogging around, lollygagging. Guys were playing and were playing hard. And we were 0-10 my freshman year. I think we won. No, we won one game. We were 1-9 my freshman year. My sophomore year, I think we won a game. I believe we won a game. But my junior year, things changed. We was going into summer camp, And Coach Kopp, we lost our quarterback. Brian Kopp was our quarterback, and something happened with Brian. Coach Kopp was living in Boardman, and he had to go to Boardman. And
Yeah.
so Coach Kopp said, "Hey, you have to play quarterback." And I never told him this, but deep down in my heart, I'm like, "Man, I'm a tailback. I don't want to play quarterback." And but I never told him that because I was a player's coach. I was a coach's player. So it was like I was a coach on the field, but I was a player on the field. So DJ Kavanaugh, Cheney grad, came out and started training me. I mean, fundamentals, learning how to take a snap, how to hold your hands. I mean, I never played quarterback in my life other than rough and tumble and playing street ball when it's a blizzard outside. And so I learned all those fundamentals. Our first preseason game, I said, you know what? I think I found my space and start throwing the ball and just put a whole new dynamic on my game. And I just enjoyed being in the pocket, just waiting patiently for somebody to come open because I knew I could run anytime. And Coach Kopp used to tell me, listen, this is why I put you at quarterback because my best player got to have the ball on every play. If you see an opening, run. And so I was trying to develop. I just really enjoyed the fact that I finally get an opportunity to be the general that I knew I always was as a kid. And that was just it was fun to me. It was just fun. It wasn't a game. It was fun. So being able to compete at quarterback against that kind of talent, uh, recruiting players to come play with us. Hey man, you come play with us. Come play with us. And guys saying, man, you should come play with us. But I knew once I was the manager at Wilson in sixth grade, and I developed that relationship with Coach Kopp, I wasn't going to no other school. I had an opportunity to go to Mooney. They wanted me to transfer to South. I, I just knew that I already gave that man my word that I was going to be his best player that he ever coached. And there was no reason for me to go because you strap it up anywhere. I'll play against anybody and I'll play for anybody. But that's the man that I wanted to play for. And that's the school that I wanted to represent. So I never backed out on my word. And freshman year, had this thing in the city called racial balance. Certain players can play if they lived in a different district. But freshman year at Wilson, I had Tamron, Andre Mason, Terrence Pegram, Tony Robinson, Charles Edmond. We had a freshman squad going into camp freshman year. And once school started, they told those guys they had to sit out. And Mason went to South, Tamron went to South, and a couple other dudes that said, man, we going back to South. Because they wanted to come to Wilson and play. We had an opportunity to play it. I mean, I started my freshman year. So when you think about Tamron Smith and Andre Mason, that kind of talent, being able to get on the field as early as freshmen, we could have built that thing even better than what we did. But, that's hindsight 2020.
Yeah, I understand all of that because I grew up and lived on the south side off of Glenwood the whole time I was coming up. Um, like I said, my sisters went to Wilson ahead of me. They graduated 86, 87. So when it was my time to choose high school, it was, I was pretty much on that path to Wilson, but at the last moment decided to go to Cheney with one of my good friends. So didn't play that first year because of the racial balance criteria at the time. You had to forfeit a season eligibility. Uh, I always heard it from my friends from South, especially when we started to turn things around at Cheney and, we're winning the city year after year and making playoffs. Anytime we come in to South, you hear your guys like, y'all supposed to be over here. You
Yes.
shouldn't be over there with Cheney. But, you know, you your parents are making decisions for you. You're thinking about what you want for yourself, and sometimes you need that different opportunity to take you where you're supposed to go or where you want to go. Um, Jumping back to your experience getting switched from being a running back, which was more in your comfort zone to playing that quarterback position. I also noticed that, you're counted on to do multiple things across the board. And when we talk about those three phases of the game, we talking about offense, defense, special teams. I looked at the 9-week totals for the city statistics and was amazed at the number of categories that you showed up in. You're the second leading passer in the city. You're the second leading rusher in the city. You're kicking extra points. You're kicking field goals. You're the number one scorer in the city. You're the total offense leader in the city. And then you're still in the top 5 in interceptions. So, knowing that the team is dependent on you that much, putting the ball in your hands on every play, you're getting turnovers for your defense to get back out onto the field and direct the offense. You're kicking off, you're kicking field goals, punting. So you're never really coming off of the field. Um, what did you do in terms of conditioning to be able to handle that type of workload?
Well, I guess nowadays, any given athlete, no matter where you live, these guys have personal trainers. We just worked out with the team, and whatever the coaches saw fit in terms of our training regimen, I took it to another level. My mother used to fuss at me because I had dirt patches in the backyard. I had my jump stretch bands wrapped around the pole, and I was just running in place. And it was like, you see a dog digging up, trying to hide his bones. I had tracks in the backyard, just trying to figure out how I get that competitive edge. Always look myself in the mirrors like, how can I get better? How can I be stronger? Fourth quarter is coming. All I really needed was some ice, running off the field. Just give me some ice. And, the managers will tell you, I didn't want no water. I just wanted some ice, just to chew on some ice. So it's been times where I knew what was going to happen because we were so disciplined. We took tests. We watched film, and we would grade film out, and we'll have like a 3-4 page down and distance situation, 2nd and 4, 3rd and 7. What does South do on 3rd and 7 on these specific plays based on these 3 reels of film that we watched? And so we would have to take a test on Thursday, like a real paper and pencil test. And that started with Tony Robinson. And, he was a scholar. He's always been a scholar. But that's how we got that competitive edge. And so knowing what I knew from film study and taking tests, I'll just run in the game on 3rd down and tell somebody to come out. And I'll be sitting right there waiting to make a tackle or an interception, or sometimes I ran as defensive end, sometimes I ran as free safety, sometimes I ran in as linebacker. And Coach Copy's like, don't do that again. But I would slide in the huddle. But when they break the huddle, I'm already on the field. And we didn't waste no timeouts. I just knew that a play was coming, and I gambled on it. I would say 80% of the time it worked. I didn't do it all the time, but I knew when we needed a play, I'm just gonna go in there and try to make an impact for my team. So that comes from being prepared mentally, extra edge in terms of working out at home, doing extra things to get my body together, not really knowing what I was doing, but just thinking, hey, this is the right thing to do. I need to condition a little bit more. Because like I said, nowadays, the average kid has a personal trainer. We couldn't afford that, so I did it on my own. All those categories, I just wanted to impact the game. And how I play in this professional life is the same way I played when I played football, from little league to high school to college. And it's just a forever formula to get better. It's just to get better every day. And you compete to win. So that was my 90% here, 10% physical. That was the competitive edge. I knew when people were tired. We knew when we lost the city championship 2 years in a row. We lost the South. and we lost the Ram. Junior year, we lost to South. First play of the game, Harold Robinson get a hit pointer. We had a game plan where I was throwing the ball 99% of the time to Harold. Harold got hurt. Tony came in, and Tony lit South up. We still lost the game, but we lost our whole game plan. But that's life. Senior year, we lost on a muff punt. Jermaine Spivey muffed the punt, took it in. We lost the Ram 17-10, and that flipped the whole city championship. But Coach Kopp started his coaching career at Cheney. Cheney was his last stop before he became head coach. Let me just put it that way. And he always had an affinity, like, man, Cheney, coming under Ed Mady, coming at him. I'm like, Coach Kopp, we're going to beat Cheney. And so we beat Cheney 22-0 my junior year. It was the year of the strike. And that it was like a Thursday morning or Sunday morning. Yeah, it was Sunday morning. We had to go find everybody because they lifted the strike and they told us we can play. The officials showed up at YSU. We beat Cheney 22-0. In senior year, we beat Cheney 10-7. I kicked the field goal and we beat them 10-7. So that was one of the things that I knew that it was in Coach Kopp's heart to really just beat his former team. And all those years, I was like, man, we got to beat Cheney. If we don't beat anybody, we got to beat Cheney. And so it was sort of like, and give that man his flowers, This is, give him his flowers. So it was a collective effort. And kicking that field goal, showing up in that category was a blessing. And let me tell you how I started kicking. My freshman year, I think it was my sophomore year, I hurt my shoulder. And so at practice, I just started kicking the ball. Coach Kopp was like, hey, what are you doing? And move it back 10 yards. And I kicked it, it went in. Move it back 10 more yards. And he's like, you're going to be kicking. So I started kicking junior year. I was kicking off, kicking extra points, kicking field goals. And that's just what it was.
Well, you brought up some names that I had on my list to talk about. Harold Robinson, Akron great, doctor now, Tony Robinson, tremendous player in the conference that I played in. He went to Slippery Rock and was, that same guy in that conference, very feisty, not very big, but he's a person that's going to take care of his area and his responsibility. And then one thing that I found very, very interesting was for the time span that you played at Wilson 85 through that 88 season, you intersected with a lot of great players, some of who you mentioned, the Donaldson brothers. You face off with Ray Isaac. You got Ray Merrill over at South doing his thing. And then on your own team, guys like Wendell Stewart, Chuck Fitzgerald, Terrence Pegram. These are all individuals whose names would ring out and were known throughout the city as great competitors, great players, record aside, because, when you talk about that transition of 1-9, 0-10, 3-7 to 5-5, the casual person is going to look at that and just judge you strictly by the number. They're going to say, oh, you were good or you were bad based off of what that final record said. So, I like to look at it at this advanced age and having experience as a player, having coached and knowing what goes into planning and preparing and trying to get your team to that next level, to that next win. I look at it as wins and lessons because, it's only a loss if you don't learn anything from it.
Correct.
And for you guys to go from being a one-win team to 5-5 to competing for that city championship, what were those lessons that you learned early on facing off against some of those great players and those great teams that drove you all as a collective to really push that last senior season and really put your program right at the edge of being, king of the hill?
It was just keep fighting, keep competing, It wasn't never quit. Don't quit. One of the things, Blaine Griffin, council president, city of Cleveland, to this day, I always tease him, man, you should have played football. Blaine was getting letters for football, and he never played it down in football. Dwayne Stanford would have been the first Randy Moss. All I told him to do, look, just play football. You 6'7". All you gotta do is run down the field. I'm gonna get you the ball. I'm gonna throw it up because no one's gonna out jump you. No, man, I'm a basketball player. And the evolution of the game, when you seeing Calvin Johnson, Randy Moss, all these big wideouts now. And Dwayne in Little League football, that's what he was. But when we got to high school, guys start thinking, man, I need to compartmentalize my talent. It's over in this box only. But down here in Georgia, I know coaches from around the country, like, I don't recruit guys unless they play 2-3 sports. I don't recruit guys that only play one sport. And that was one of the things that I took advantage of. I ran track, I played basketball, and I played football. So I knew the formula in terms of just competing and trying to find that extra, piece that'll get you over the edge, and bringing that team together, try to figure out, look, hey, man, we got to just stay together and we got to keep fighting. So those were the tangibles, never giving up, never showing that bad sportsmanship. I go to the games now, I see a lot of crybabying, parents getting involved. And, it's just bad for the sport, because you got to let players play and you got to let them take their lumps in terms of a loss, whether it's by 2 points or whether it's by 50 points. It's what you going to do when you get knocked down. Are you going to get back up, or you going to whine about it? I'm transferring. The coach ain't giving me no burn. And that's all part of life, man. You join an organization, you know more than everybody, but you just got to wait your turn. You got to be patient, or you just got to keep showing up. You got to keep showing up in the metrics, and somehow you'll get promoted or moved up, or somebody will deem, hey, this is the time that, it's your time. Let's go. Or for me, I've just been creating in different spaces all my life. And Wilson was that experience that I knew I can do anything I wanted to do, because I'm doing it at the level where the city is rich in talent. The Valley is rich in talent. I mean, we went up to Warren Harding and just beat Warren Harding, kicked the field goal, sent it in overtime, and then we beat them in overtime. I mean, it's like 15,000 people at Mollenkoff Stadium, and we just balling them. And, Clayton Wade and I became good friends from that. Like, man, y'all came up here and y'all brought it to us. Like, yeah, we just wanted an opportunity to play against the best. We gonna show up and we gonna play y'all. We gonna play to the end of the game, and we end up beating them. Junior year they beat us 15-6. Senior year we beat them, and then it's like they retooled, because I think a year or so after, man, they merged both schools, and I think that's one of the main things that's missing in Youngstown right now. South closed, Wilson closed, Rand closed, North closed. But we splitting hairs when it comes to talent. Go to Cheney, you go to East. But that year we had one program. It was just all Youngstown. And I was proud of that. And then they went back, and it's like, man, your depth is either at Cheney or East. Pick a position. You got depth and you got talent. And that's what happened to East that year. We got into the playoffs, and we ran out of depth. So, Doc, what you got for me?
No, I one of the things that I was kind of interested in was, you go to Kent State, have a great career, and you're excelling now in your professional pursuits. What kind of tied all of that together, right? You got that dog in you, right, as a high school football player, and you even said earlier, how you approach your preparation in high school and playing is how you approach your business now. What's kind of the evolution of that? Because this isn't just about like great high school players, but it's about great men. guys who have gone on and done some things following whatever it may be. What's kind of that progression for you?
I think, for me, I just want to, all I need is a seat at the table. Just let me get in the room. And once you get in the room, for example, my freshman year at Kent, I walk in, summer camp, I'm looking around. This guy right here made North-South over me. Okay. This guy right here made All-State over me. Okay. Put the helmet and shoulder pads on. It's like, this can't be true. This can't be true. Because I know what I can do. And that's when I had to learn about all the politics, who you play for, timing, and whose turn. So I patiently waited for my turn. And when I got to Kent, by the way, Kent and Northern Illinois were the only two colleges that offered me a scholarship for quarterback. And I took it primarily because Bob Stoops was the assistant coach at Kent recruiting me at the time. And he left to go to Kansas State. And I remember his phone call like yesterday. He called me and said, Kevin, I'm going to tell you right now, I can take you and Jamie Mendez right now. But I want you to know something. The people at Kent State, they're waiting for you. They got a special place for you. And they looking for an athlete of your type. They looking for a person with that kind of personality of that type. You're going to be successful. You can come with me to Kansas State, and I'm sure you're going to do great things. But I've never seen a university take a liking to somebody. They never met you. Talking about that. The administration, university officials, looking for that kind of leadership on campus. And that kind of stayed in the back of my mind. And I called Devlin Culliver. Culliver was a standout at Mooney, went to Ohio U. And he said, Kev, go to Kent, man. Go to Kent. Man, I'm talking Paterno came to the school. George Perlis came to the school. Everybody came. Ohio State, everybody came. And it came down to listening to Bob Stoops and my man Culliver just telling me, man, go. And Coach Holt took Stoops' place. And he said, man, I got one job. And that's to make sure you come to Kent. And we talked every day. And that's just what it was. I felt that connection. And I felt like I can bring my talents, not just on the football field, but as a person. And, just being a good human. Being able to, impact the university. Done some things on some advisory boards, through the trustee's office, through the president's office, vice provost's office, and just being a leader on campus. I received an award my freshman year on campus for outstanding leader on campus. That had nothing to do with football. And many times when things happen on campus, I was called to like, hey, you need to get the fraternities and the football players. We got a lot of fighting and stuff going on. How do you bring peace, to the university? So I was one of those guys that was called upon to just, get everybody to just, come together and just try to figure out how we as young men and women, be productive in our passion towards what we try to achieve in life. So the gridiron gave me all of that foundation to be able to take X's and O's off of a football field 53 yards wide and just put it on the global stage that's infinite. And that's just what I believe in right now, just playing the game, on an infinite level.
How did you decide to, or what was the process of pursuing the doctoral degree, making that step, going that route?
So when I got cut from the Broncos, I came back home. I enrolled back in school because my degree was not complete. I enrolled back in school. I finished my degree. And my agent was like, hey, start working out, man. and I went to the Browns camp, and not as a signee, but I was waiting. Uh, Saban was the defense coordinator, Belichick was the head coach, and Bo Pelini was the defensive quality control coach. And I'm in street clothes, just waiting for an opportunity. I'm there, but I'm not there. And so my agent called me one day and said, "Hey, listen, man, stay in shape. You're going to get a call. But what I need you to do, find a part-time job so you can keep some money in your pocket." And I started substitute teaching because that gave me a lot of flexibility. And the first day I went in as a substitute teacher, I realized that there was a whole different world waiting for me, to being able to put myself in position to go in inner city Cleveland and impact lives of young men and women who had no understanding of how to get to the next level of anything. And I knew at that point, I called my agent like a week later to say, "You know what? I think I found my NFL. I think I found my purpose. Like, I've been chasing something for so long, but it's a forever game that I'm playing. I just play in this space." And so I started substitute teaching. The principal at that time, I got called to the office like my second day. And I didn't know what was going on. And he's like, "Look, I don't know what you're doing in that classroom, but I've never seen a group of kids sit down. You got the worst group of kids in the school. But they're sitting down, they're doing their work, and they listening to you. Whatever you're doing up there, just keep doing it. Just make sure don't nobody get hurt. And make sure everybody get to lunch." And I started mentoring these young kids with the understanding that, you got to be creative to get kids to sit down and do work and have an understanding why they doing what they doing. And so it was always a question, "Well, Mr. Harris, man, why you doing this, Harris? Well, what did you do, Harris? Well, what did you do?" I said, what I did is how I got to this point right here. And so it became a belief system. And then he told me, "Look, you need to start coaching basketball." We didn't have football in Cleveland at that time. So I was the basketball coach. And I knew I had to change the whole dynamic of what inner city Cleveland basketball looks like. So at that time, I hold on one second. At that time, I went out and I got all the kids new uniforms, tearaway pants, shooting jerseys with the shooting shirts, pullovers. Their jerseys had their names on the back. They had matching socks, matching shoes, and I carried like 22 players. And the principal was like, "You can't carry all them players. You going to." I like, "Look, if they're not with me, they're going to get suspended. If they're not with me, they're going to be running these halls giving you problems. So give them to me. Let me have them." All right. You know what you're doing? Are you sure? I said, "Listen, it's not on me to do this. It's in me. Give those kids to me. I don't care. Many of them are not going to get in the game. I understand that. But they're in the game when they're with me. With that uniform, they got a sense of pride. I'm giving them something that they always wanted but never knew how to get." And that was just the fact that I want to be around somebody that cared for me and somebody to think of me to give me an opportunity to be part of an organization, to be part of a team. And so my principal was like, "Look, whatever you need, you got it." So I started running. After the season, we lost the championship 2 years in a row. After the season, I started running open gym, girls and boys. We had like 700 kids in the school at that time. I think I was averaging 300 and some kids every night after school. And they were just staying there. And, I called parents, "Hey, y'all got to come up here and help me because I'm here pretty much me and my assistant, but we giving them a safe haven." So those are some of the things in terms of the outliers, the things that, you have to create in different spaces. And from that, it helped me shape that I need to be doing something different. Okay, I'm teaching. And there's a backstory to how I got into teaching full time. My second day, the principal called me into the office. And like I said, what are you doing with those kids? And he said, look, I tell you what, I know you working out. I know you trying to get back into the NFL, chasing your dreams. But if you stay, we'll pay for your master's degree.
Hmm.
So, me being from Youngstown, poker face, on the inside, I'm like wheel spinning, but I'm looking at him, I'm smiling, and I'm like non-committal. He said, are you going to do it? I'm like, I'll get back with you tomorrow. I'll let you know. So the next day, 7:30, he waiting at the door. Harris, what do you think? I said, Mr. Lawson, I'm going to do it. I knew you wasn't a fool. I knew you wasn't a fool. But I had already calculated that. I can get a master's degree, get a full-time certification, K through 12, all areas for special ed kids. Because at the time, that's what they gave me. They gave me all the behavior kids. And from that day, when I started teaching, every year, my group of kids moved test scores. I improved test scores. And so every year, I elevated, saying, I have to do more. So I went from a teacher to an assistant principal. In my last year as an assistant principal, I said, you know what? I can't play with this any longer. I gotta go get my PhD because I have to be a superintendent because it's only so many layers that I can get up to. And then there's other things that I won't be able to see. But I know if I got certain things out of these categories, I can change the whole dynamic of the school. So I made the decision to go to Howard. That's the only school I applied to. I got in. I flew to DC. In 2 days, they paid for all my tuition, all my housing. I got a stipend, and I was a special assistant to the vice provost, making $65,000 a year. So I'm living in Washington, D.C., like with no bills, making a great salary. And so 7 years, that's what you have to get your PhD. I finished in 3 years because I knew that was a blessing. And I didn't want to milk the system. It's like, man, you making some pretty good money. You don't have no bills. They paying for your housing. Man, you might as well let this ride. But my conscience was telling me, you need to be a blessing to somebody else. Show somebody else how to do what you did. Don't wait 7 years, procrastinate. You do this now because this is how you're wired. And I finished in 3 years. And that was the impetus of going back to the schools saying, okay, now I'm in position to put myself in a position, superintendent, assistant superintendent, to make some real change. Got recruited out of DC to Atlanta. And after 2 years in Atlanta, I was at one of the top high schools in Atlanta. I said, you know what? I can do this better on my own as a consultant. Because my last 2 years, I was in Newsweek magazine, top 6% of public high schools in America. And everybody started wanting to come train with me. What are you doing to flip your data? What are you doing? And I just knew how to pull data, do transcript audits, do all the little tangible things that people don't think about in order to move school, change culture, change climate. And that was how I evolved out of the schools to saying I need to elevate to get my doctorate degree in order to make that kind of impact.
And that kind of circles back to just that Youngstown competition, right? That level of, really, I mean, what I hear a lot of is that belief in yourself too, that you sat down in front of Coach Kopp and said, hey, you know what, I'm going to be the best player you ever had, respectfully, humbly, but I'm going to be the best player you ever had. And then it seems like that's kind of the mentality that you deal with right now.
Yeah, and to put it in context, even every year as a teacher, assistant principal, and even as a principal, I used to tell my staff, hey, we're not better than anybody. We're not professing to be better than anybody, but we're going to be the best at what we do. We're not competing against nobody. We only here to do what we do, and we're going to do it well enough to our students, our scholars, reap the benefits, reap the rewards of our work. And it's like a default outcome. I know what I wanted, but there's certain things you have to say and certain things you have to do to get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Man, listening to your story, it's tremendous that all of those characteristics, all that foundation Coming out of Youngstown, the Westlake area, Bonnie Rogers, Wilson, Kent, always fighting uphill. You know, not you're not the biggest guy. You're not on the most talent laden team, but you find a way to rise to the top, and you're a goal directed person. Now, it's interesting. Uh, you don't know when you cross paths with people, and you don't know what people are looking at when they watch you. But I took a visit to Kent during that time that you were there. I think it was the last year, and I believe you may have been getting ready for your tryout with Denver because we went through the facility that's right next to the field. They were giving us a tour, and I remember when we came into the weight room in that facility, you were on using the trap bar and you were working out, and they whoever was showing us around, they stopped, and told you that myself and Sylvester Patton were up from Youngstown, and you took a few moments out of your workout, talked to us a little bit, gave us a rundown of why this university was a great place to come to play football at. And at the time, you guys weren't really winning all that much,
Right.
but you know we looked at you in that moment and saw how focused you were. We had followed what you had done. We had seen you in action and knew, what from being a quarterback coming to Kent, being a dominant defensive back, and some of the things that you're doing at corner, it was really with a safety's mentality. You're a
Right.
high tackle guy. You're defending against the pass. You're out there playing with tenacity every down, and you're doing everything you can within your power to help your team. It it shows up in your conversation and you recounting why you do what you do. It's evident that that's who you have always been at your core. And I'm just so thankful that you took time out of your day and out of your busy schedule, to lay this down with myself in Dallas because you serve as a shining beacon of what a person can accomplish if you just set your mind to something and you don't get detracted by all the distractions and all of the hurdles that are out there in your path. And you're a great representative and a great ambassador of what a person can do if you just stick to the goal, if you have belief in yourself, if you don't listen to what somebody else's opinion of you is. And I'm proud to see you in the arenas that you're in. Uh, when you hit Wilson as a quarterback, I was emerging as a quarterback down in the Bonnie Rogers League, and you were one of those guys that I wanted to be like. And just listening to your story, man, seeing how you ended up, and just being able to empathize and understand, that doesn't come without a lot of hard work. It doesn't come without some losses in your past, and it doesn't come with just a golden road paved with success. So, in saying that to you, if you had one more down to play, where would that be at? Who would be with you? And what would it entail? And what would the outcome be? Set it up for
Well, to be honest with you, I think the one more down for me, it really has nothing to do with football. I didn't prepare for my ACT, and as a result, I was Prop 48, and I missed a whole season my freshman year.
you.
I started 3 years at Kent because I couldn't play my first year. And I truly believe that's the only reason why I didn't start 4 years at Kent. So one more down for me is being able to get that time back and get my ACT and just experience that whole season. And as a result of that, as it's rolling across the screen, I wrote that book on clarity. not looking at that as a major thing that I needed to do at that time. And it got the best of me because I ran out of time and I didn't have the test score that I needed. Kent still honored my scholarship, but I sat out that whole year. That was painful. And so what I did, because I'm so competitive, I started my own ACT, SAT test prep company. And I started training guys to not pass the ACT, but beat the ACT, because I learned the game of how you take tests. And so many guys in Atlanta, Georgia area, I can tell you, I got guys academically eligible from passing their ACT that play for Clemson, play for Miami, Boston College, and several other smaller schools down here in Georgia because of that competitive edge. And what I lost in 1 year, I didn't let it get the best of me. I lost a whole season. So as a result, I said, you know what? I'm going to train myself all of the tangibles in terms of what you need to know to beat the ACT. And as a result, parents, I still have parents calling me to this day. I don't do it as much, but I developed a system where I had people working for me. I was the primary tutor at the time. High school coaches, hey, Doc, you got to get my guy. He's a 4-star recruit. He don't have a score. Let's go. Schools were contracting me, training ACT classes for their student athletes. And many of those kids, I had a good success record with getting those kids across the finish line. So that was my one more play for me, just being able to see that a lot of these guys were able to go to school and just have that fresh start, because a lot of people were not wired, man. I'm just being honest with you. And that takes me back to the conversation I said I want to touch on in this conversation. Some people have a tendency to give up on things that get the best of them. I didn't give up on the fact that I was Prop 48. It was hard. It was very difficult. Not being able to practice with your teammates. Not being able to play a game. Just not being able to practice, period. For a whole year, when you in your prime in terms of your body, your mind, body, and your spirit, in a whole year of not being able to do anything. So that one more play for me, I reflected on that as an adult, saying, you know what, that's one thing that got the best of me. Not East beat us, not South beat us, not, man, if Dwayne would have played, we would have won a few more games, or if Griff would have played. But that season that I had to sit out, and at a time where I was just fresh coming off, looking for competitive edge, looking for a different experience, wanting to create in a different space. And fast forward, these last 10 years, I've just been training, young men and women, to increase their ACT scores and being able to be qualifiers and earn scholarships to play Division I, Division II, Division III. Even cheerleaders that went to college because the ACT score was up. And that's like the biggest joy, because that was probably one of the biggest setbacks of all of my years of playing football. So I was able to get joy out of that pain. So it's all educational related. It's all about connecting the dots. And that was one of the hiccups that I had in my life, that I look at no one other than myself as, I had to right something that I did wrong. And that brings me great joy to be able to say, hey, I was able to turn that situation around and bring happiness to other scholar athletes and families.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so impressive, the connection that you make between your playing experience and the professional experience, and then helping others through that whole process. So I just wanted to say thank you for giving some insight on that. It's been a real joy to just kind of listen to you and interact a little bit. So thank you.
I appreciate the time, man. You guys keep doing it. I'm honored to be part of your program. If you ever want me to come back for another segment, just let me know. And it's funny you say that, because when I was interviewed in terms of my last 2 years being a principal. I was being interviewed and somebody asked, man, how did you do this? You got 1,800 kids in this building. You changed the whole trajectory. You flipped the whole test score. I said that I was able to look at my data and find 40 kids that I needed to move. And it was like, wait, 40 kids? Yes, 40. Out of 1,800? Yes, out of 1,800. Out of 341 juniors, I needed 40 kids. And I was able to manipulate the data to figure out how to move those 40 to flip my whole school climate, culture, concept, profile. And we went to work. So we
And
established. Go ahead.
No, it's funny you say that because before I came to where I'm at now, I was at and I was reading your bio, talking about school turnaround and you that kind of being your area of focus and even what you're doing now. It's prior to where I am now, it was a turnaround school and we had great success. We worked so hard. You know, we were doing some cutting edge things and doing all these great programs and you see just a little bump, you know, and then you come to a different district and you're just kind of doing things. Maybe the dynamics are a little bit different and, you know, you're up here anyway. So it's I was just reading through your bio and some of the things you accomplished and it was kind of interesting, intriguing. So, you know, the turnaround piece is tough.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. The work is the work, man. It's just how do you create in those spaces to find joy and create and replicate that joy across the spectrum in terms of your scholars, your bus drivers, your cafeteria workers, your teachers, your parents. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
a lot of guys like, man, you know everybody. I was just never afraid to talk to people. You know, I was
Yeah.
never in a comfort zone per se. You know, I always wanted to do or know what everybody was doing, how everybody else lived. It's like, man, you be going up, man. It seems like all the people around Wilson area, they like you. I'm like, I just got questions. Like, what are y'all doing that's different? Like, tell me about your culture. Tell me about your experience. Like, how are you all living? Like, what do your mom do? What does your dad do? And in all of this, I'm being everything that I always yearned as a child. Just being everything that I always wanted as a kid growing up. And that goes back to the conversation, Ron, you mentioned earlier about, some of the guys reluctant to come on the show because they still have, some bad feelings about, different things, whether it's a mom or a dad or a coach. And at some point in your life, man, you just got to understand that, life happens. And the reward is being able to take that experience and learn from it. Not the fact that, you got a choice. I developed a framework, a choose to succeed framework. And within that framework, context, you got a choice to get better or to remain bitter. But as long as you're bitter, that energy is going to continue to permeate throughout your family structure. So you start raising kids that have this edge that they don't even know where it's coming from. They have this animosity that they don't even know the foundation, the ideology of why that is, or why I am becoming my father, or why am I becoming my mother? Why do I have this block here that prevents me from thinking outside of a box? Because I'm comfortable in that space, seeing my dad bitter. And when you see these parents show up at these little league football games and they're yelling at the coaches and yelling at the referees, and my mom, the school system failed her. My dad, the little league, they ain't let him play, and that's why he wasn't good. Da da da. And it's like some point, you got to be able to come to grips and say, you know what, I just probably need to talk about it. And in the Black community as a whole, it's just got stigmatism. You know, we can't show those kind of feelings or emotions. You know, that's considered to be weak. I mean, for me, I had to talk about me being Prop 48. That was one of the hardest things I had to experience in my life. You know, as far as like me on my own dealing with that. You know, you get better at it when you're able to express how you feel about it. Yes, it did hurt. Yes, but you take that opportunity, that learning opportunity, and you're able to, you know what? It wasn't meant for me to have that joy. It was meant for me to be that vessel to make sure somebody else experienced that joy. You know, that's just one of the things that people got to understand in life. You either gonna be bitter or you can get better. And I think we have a lot of young men in Youngstown that's still there. And primarily why they're still there is because the bitter aspect of it, in which they can get better, and that in turn can produce better communities, you know, better neighbors, you know, fathers supporting other fathers, you know, fathers supporting mothers, you know, father-son relationships better. And that's the caveat in terms of how I operate. Everything I do in life is what I always yearned as a child. You know, I do for my kids because that's what I wanted. You know, I give them a better life than what I experienced, but oh no, they know foundation. They know, they know foundation. They know what's number one, be good. What's number two, be respectful. What's daddy's primary job? Daddy, you teaching us how to live without you.
Absolutely. Yeah, my son, well, my oldest one, he's up in Youngstown now. You know, he's staying with my parents. He's sleeping in the room that I had after my sisters left. So, you know, some of what you're saying, he's getting that foundational training, and I think because he's been up there and you know lived in close proximity with my parents, he understands me better. He understands why I think the way I think, why I direct him the way that I direct him, because he's having to navigate the same streets and avoid some of the same trappings that I did coming up there. You know, so uh, you know some of that bitterness, some of that generational curse, you know, I say the majority of it comes from just never getting out of your surroundings and seeing something different. You know? So I don't know if Youngstown will ever make it back to some of that era that you came up in, I came up in, Dallas came up in, but you know, hopefully at some point, you know, there'll be something that those young people can gravitate to and grab onto and change the course of what's going on, you know, amongst the neighborhoods and the streets, and they can see some light at the end of the tunnel up there. Because you know, every time I come home, it's hard for me to see it the way that it is now because all my memories are this used to be here, this used to be there, they used to live there, you know. So when you come back now, it's a totally different feeling, totally different experience. I feel like a stranger. I've been gone for the last almost 30 years now that I've lived away from there. So you know, it's always home in my heart, but it's not home anymore. You know.
But let me challenge you on that though, because the way I see it, it's like tying your shoes. You know, once you learn how to do it, once your environment is your environment, it's like the soap operas. You can drop in and pick up on the story and just keep it rolling. You know, as long as you've been gone for 30 years, you can drop right back in and figure out like, okay, this is where we at. I know what to do in this situation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know,
Yeah, the funniest
I
thing that ever happened to me, I went to Youngstown, I think it was around 2015, and I went and spoke to, it was the school district leadership and principal, group of principals, assistant principals. And I forget the guy's name. He was the assistant superintendent at the time. And he said to me, well, you know what, man? You are a unicorn. I said, well, why you say that? He said, man, Look at you. Look at your career. Look at what you were able to do. And I'm saying to myself, if I get the classification as a unicorn coming out of Youngstown, Ohio, Westlake Projects, playing for Wilson, going 1-9, 0-10, think about what all the other kids can become. Think about what all the other scholars can become. If Kevin Harris can be a unicorn, man, if we do the work collectively, and if the mindset is shifted, if there's a paradigm shift, because guess what? You see me as a unicorn, meaning everybody didn't move at the same rate I did. But something was given to us. Something was given to me in terms of my appreciation value that allowed me to get into this space. So I turned the question back to him. What are you doing as the assistant superintendent to create unicorns?
Hmm.
And I couldn't get an answer. So I had to challenge him like, well, if you see me as a unicorn, what are you doing to create an environment that you can get some unicorns out of this? Because there's pockets of excellence everywhere. But if you
Well,
as a top leader not setting the foundation, you're not going to get any unicorns. And you just don't
no,
think I'm
he said it, right? I mean, he said what his thought was. That's it. Like, you're it. You know, there's no replicating that. And that's kind of a scary thing, right? I mean,
absolutely.
yeah, that's it. That's it. Ron, you have anything else? I
No,
just want to
other
say
than
thanks. It's been great, man. I really appreciate
yeah,
it.
just very very appreciative, man, of that. I've always looked up to you, man, and you were one of those first individuals that I thought would really be great for this platform because of you you know I, for lack of a better way to say it, I think sometimes when people develop a reputation and name recognition for themselves and go off to do great things, you're in those places and spaces where very important work is going on. But me, I'm going from a viewpoint of personal interest of who are the guys that have always been up on that higher level for me. So it's for me, this isn't about stats. It's not about if you made all state. It's not about if you were number one in this or that or where you went or if you made it to the NFL. This is my list of uh personal faves. This is my list of, you know, greatness outside of the lines. You know what I mean? So for you to respond and get engaged with us, I'm just happy because it lets me know that the reason why I wanted to do this, the reason why Dallas wanted to do this, you're you're the prototype of the type of individual who just has happened to play football within that city system for this platform and this podcast. So when these episodes do come out and drop, I think we're probably going to get a lot of back end traffic of people wanting to be a part of this because of you know the caliber of man that you are, and you've always been that guy. Like I can think back. I know the Darren Iversons, the Kevin Iversons, Jerry Terry Perry. I can put you in that era, and I've never ever heard a negative thing said about you. I never heard anybody say that, oh, Kevin Harris, he think he all of that because he in the paper, this, and this. You've been lunch pail, go to work type of guy. Those are the guys that I always grew up with. So I just really appreciate you being a part of it with us.
Absolutely, man. And look, so before the pandemic, it's funny because Diallo lives here in Atlanta and Buster Stanley lives here in Atlanta.
Ah,
So
see, you got two
I
names
would,
off the
hey,
list
listen,
up to.
I would invite them over for the Ohio State Michigan game. I cook the food and be like, okay, so I'm gonna feed y'all, but Ohio State gonna put this whipping on y'all. And we got to get that back to, Diallo and I talk all the time. He's a fraternity brother, so I'm really serving as a mentor to him, even in our adult lives. Diallo grew up with us in Westlake too, and
Right.
Diallo is doing his thing down here. Buster doing his thing, but those are two names that I think will be
They
definitely,
already on the list,
yeah,
Kev. We need you to spread the word and explain to them what this is about, because I've approached a couple of notables, and because we don't have the video evidence out there yet for them to kind of see what we're talking about and see the vision, it's been a slow, walk up to, well, why you picking me? I think some guys are so humble that they don't know why they would even be targeted. So if you can pass the word and let them guys know, what we're trying to put out and accomplish here, because I think the first vision is to try to talk to a representative from each one of those schools, put it out in a series, and then, get the cycle going of talking to those other layers of great players, so that we don't alienate anybody. You know what I mean?
well, if you text me the list of the people you want to target, and like I said, Diallo and Buster, that's easy. I mean, and I'm sure once I see your list, because that's always been the type of person I am. I'm connected with everybody. I don't
Yeah,
care if you want East, Mooney, Ursland, Fitch, Warren Hardy. We're gonna connect and we're gonna find common ground to develop friendship.
yeah.
So you
So
text me the list of people. I'll hey man, you need to do this podcast, and it's one of them things that you don't have no choice.